I read the script, and my producing partner was in Berlin at a Depeche Mode gig. This sounds like the soundtrack of our movie. So I was like, wow, this is...
They wrote this for us.
They wrote this for us, yeah.
Hi, David Crow here with the Den of Geek, and I'm here with Babak Anvari and Matthew Rhys for your new thriller, Hallow Road. Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, hello. Hello.
Sorry, that's the first time I've used that. I won't do it again.
I think that was great. This is a thriller movie, and it represents, I think, something that's just about every parent's worst nightmare. The thought of getting a phone call in the middle of the night, and it's from a child who has gotten into a very terrible problem. Mm-hmm. Is that something that's kept y'all up in the middle of the night?
Yes. Well, children in general keep you up most of the night, regardless of what the fact that they're in the house or not. But certainly since doing this film, I hadn't possibly given it as much thought, but certainly having gone through this process, you certainly evaluate how you would react in such situations, or more so how you hope you would react, because obviously we gave that a lot of thought on this one.
In the film, your daughter is the one who calls and says that she has hit someone and it's on Hallow Road. What do you think this family's life was like before the phone call?
Well, I mean, that's part of the beauty of the script is the immediate previous circumstances to where we discover the first few seconds of this film, or what has happened, and then obviously the great joy of unfolding what has just happened in this film before the phone call. So it's the cards are heavily loaded going in. So there's plenty of meat to carve.
This movie raises some moral and ethical dilemmas, and I think I'm curious. Do you think it's possible to be a good parent while perhaps making the bad or the immoral choice?
Absolutely. You know, Rosamund and I talked about this a lot, about how far you'd go to protect your own child. And I think the truth of it is you'd go incredibly far, darkly far, in order to preserve their safety and their well-being, their future well-being and safety. I think there's a number of things, dark things parents would do to assure that.
And this is what I love, because in the film, your approaches are totally different. So one is more like pragmatic and rational. One is more like passionate, as you call it. So yeah, that's that clash between them. That's when it gets fun. Yeah.
Well, yeah, Babak, I was going to ask about that. Do you see the contrast as a morality fable, what they're going through?
That's actually one way to put it, because there's like, I always say there's like a fairy tale-esque aspect to the film, which immediately got my attention when I was reading the script, about like how far would you go to change the fate of your child. You can say, yeah, it is like what you call morality fable. I love that. Yeah, it is. That's a good one.
We're going to use that one.
Yeah,
it really is one, I would say. And I mean, related to that, so much of this movie is about the contrast between parenting styles, contrast between how we live our lives. And even just like, could you talk about the choice that you have on the phone, a very frightened, upset young woman, but you just keep zooming or moving the camera in closer and closer on this avatar of a smiling jejune face?
That was like, we purposefully chose that photo. It was one of Megan's person who plays Alice, the daughter. It was like one of her own photos, because we took some, like the art department took some, but they didn't look like natural. So yeah, I think that's the disturbing element of it, that you hear the anguish of this young lady. Well, every time you cut to her, she's just smiling and happy. And even like visually, you're talking about the contrast. The thing we were trying to do is that, you know, outside the car, it's almost like like the objective world. Once we're inside the car, we're entering the sort of anxious psyche of this couple. And the way I try to show that contrast is that everything outside the car is shot on 16mm film, and then once we enter the car, it switches to digital. And as the film develops, become more and more expressionistic, kind of like representing your anxiety and imagination of like what's happening on the other end of the line. So yeah.
So are we to take, because we have the crispness of digital inside the car, that everything that's happening inside the car we can say is objective reality?
That's one. Yeah, that's definitely one way to put it. I mean, it is like that was done on purpose. Yeah, like it is. It becomes very subjective, and you basically enter the unconscious more and more. Yeah, which again, it's like talking about the fairy tale aspect of it, like the forest element and what it represents. That's something we play with as well. Yeah.
Well, related to this, it does become more surreal as it goes along, and it becomes something else. Do you consider this a genre film?
Yes. It's a tricky question because I love sort of blending genres. It's just something I always love doing, and with this one, I was like, it's almost like scenes from a marriage suddenly turning strange and weird, and so I would call it, yeah, it's like a psychological thriller, psychological horror. So yeah, it's definitely a genre film. Yeah.
Well, you've spoken in the past, and we're kind of alluding to it, that it's inspired a bit by Celtic mythology. Mm-hmm. What does that mean for you in a context of a story like this?
The thing is that if I mention specifically what mythology I'm talking about, it's going to massively spoil the film. But I think for people who are like aware of that sort of, it's a very popular Celtic myth across UK and Ireland. So I think with people familiar with it, they would immediately go like, oh, I know what this subtext is. So yeah, but I don't want to get too much into it because I'm worried it's going to spoil. Do you agree?
Yeah, totally. I do think it's interesting. What we discuss is that we're so, and I think this kind of back to the mists of time. We are raised with such myth and lore and legend and fairy tales for entertainment, for moral guidance, and I think we become desensitized to it to a degree, but we still carry a number of those themes or issues or teachings into adult life, and we slightly disassociate them from the actual myths, tales, and fables themselves. I was just very reminded of it again in this movie, and the imagery, especially the use of the wood, the forest, and how potent that is, and how it rekindles something that we're very much, taught as children.
And Matthew, this is a claustrophobic movie. It's almost entirely you and Rosamund in that car. Did it feel like a play at all?
100%. We've been discussing this today, but Babak very, very kindly said, just for the first day, what I'd like to do is do almost one take. We'll put fresh cards in the cameras, and we'll do one long take from the moment you get into the car until the moment which is 50 something minutes, which was like doing a short one act play, which was as terrifying as it was exhilarating.
It works so beautifully, and I call it a warm up for everyone, but I ended up using a lot of that take because it was just phenomenal seeing it in real time unraveling like a play.
You're becoming immersed into this world, yeah, like the characters. Yeah. So is it just you and a camera operator?
There wasn't even a camera operator.
It was all remote. Yeah.
It was all remote. Everything was locked off. There was remote heads at times, but I don't really remember. Well, there was a couple of times where you could see the operator, but very, very rarely. Which was such a luxury, I think, as actors. We were very removed from the crew. We only were on a volume stage, and Kit Harris would kind of very kindly kind of screened off enormous, swaths of the crew so that we were just alone in a car.
Also, I want to talk about the soundscapes of this a little bit in Babak. Yeah. For example, I think we're hearing a little bit of Depeche Mode in the score a little bit. Wow. Could you talk about what that means?
It's so interesting. The moment I read the script, and my producing partner was in Berlin at a Depeche Mode gig, and he was sending me videos. I was like, hey, look, this is awesome. And then suddenly this specific track came up, which it's Behind the Wheel, and I immediately was like, this sounds like, and I was thinking about the script, and I was like, this sounds like the soundtrack of our movie. So they were very kind to let us use it as the basis of the score, and Lauren Balfe and and Peter Adams, our wonderful composers, they took it and then they sort of like created their own sort of rendition of it. But yeah, thanks for bringing that up. It's just so exciting, and you're a massive Depeche Mode fan as well.
Was there a thematic feel about the song you chose? Or?
Yeah, it's because it's called Behind the Will, and even the lyrics is like about like it's like my little girl, and it's about like how I'm like gonna surrender to fate, and so I was like, wow,
They wrote this for us.
They wrote this for us, yeah. And it's such an eerie track as well. Very strange and mysterious track.
Well, obviously this film's about parents, but do you think that there's something in it that young people might be able to take away about how they look at their own parents and how that relationship goes?
I'm not a parent, but I've been someone's child. So I think it's, even though the main characters are parents, it makes you think about your own sort of more choices and like ethical and moral choices, especially when you're under pressure, and like how it would affect you psychologically. I think that's like universal. Whether it's about a parent and a child or like any loved one. I think that if the film taps into that, you don't need to necessarily be a parent to get stressed watching this film.
Very true.
Yeah.
I don't want to give away any spoilers, but to give audiences an idea, it's not just these three characters. Eventually, there's a strange couple they hear on the phone. What can you say about this couple they hear?
I don't want to spoil it. I think it's just something for the audiences to experience it. But yeah, there's like, it's not just the three characters.
What I've enjoyed is how people have reacted to the couple on the phone as to what they represent.
Yeah, exactly.
And who they represent, and not necessarily their literal roles in the film, but everyone started arguing last night. He goes, no, I think that they represent this, or the symbol. Yeah. So it's great the debate it's opened up.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Acting opposite them, just hearing their voices, they do sound like some weird people, don't they, man?
They do, and I know full well that they are.
I don't want to give any more away, so this is a really tense, surprising thriller, and it had me on the edge of my seat.
Thank you so much.
Glad to hear.
And thank you for coming by, and thanks for making the movie.
Thank you very much.